A man who controls lava with his fists versus a genius who can beat you without moving. That's the fight. One side is all destruction, the other, pure strategy. You'd think the powerhouse wins, right? Not this time, because Akainu's worst enemy is someone like Shikamaru Nara. Shikamaru versus Akainu. Let's dig into an alternate timeline, one where the battlefield isn't just about who has the biggest punch, but who sees 5 moves ahead. Akainu, also known as Sakazuki, is a walking natural disaster. He's got the magma fruit, insane durability, and the kind of justice that's so absolute, even his allies fear him. He burned Ace alive, fought against Whitebeard, and went toe-to-toe with some of the strongest pirates in the One Piece world. No doubt he's terrifying, but put him up against someone like Shikamaru, and suddenly brute force stops being the only card on the table. Shikamaru isn't just smart, he's surgical. Every move he makes is part of a bigger plan. And he doesn't just react to power, he weaponizes it against you. Now sure, on paper it seems unfair. Akainu's a top-tier admiral who can melt the ground with a punch. Shikamaru doesn't even have flashy jutsu, just shadows and a brain. But that's exactly what makes this fight so satisfying, because Shikamaru doesn't need to overpower Akainu. He only needs to outsmart him. And that's where things get interesting. The battlefield. If there's one thing Shikamaru always controls, it's the location. He doesn't fight where you're strongest, he fights where you're weakest. And in this scenario, the battle takes place in a dense forest. Shadows everywhere, narrow spaces, uneven terrain. The exact kind of place where Akainu's large-scale lava attacks become a problem. For him, think about it. Lava in a forest? Sure, it's destructive, but it's also chaotic. Lava flows slow down, trees block vision, and all that burning creates smoke. That smoke? Shikamaru loves it. It hides his movements, his traps, and his shadow possession techniques. In the Naruto world, Shikamaru thrives in forests because the shadows stretch and move with the environment. Every tree branch, every leaf, every patch of darkness becomes a potential weapon. Akainu might be able to punch through mountains, but what happens when he can't even see the guy he's fighting? Shikamaru doesn't fight fair, he fights smart. How Shikamaru plans for monsters. Before this battle even begins, Shikamaru already has 5 different plans. One if Akainu charges in head-on, one if he flies, one if he melts the terrain, one if he retreats, and one just in case everything else fails. Remember what Shikamaru did to Haiden? That guy was immortal, literally could not die. But Shikamaru still beat him by luring him into a forest, isolating him, trapping him with shadow possession, and blowing the entire place up with preset explosives. He didn't overpower him. He played chess while Haiden was still learning checkers. Now let's translate that into a fight with Akainu. Shikamaru wouldn't stand there trading hits. No way. He'd let Akainu unleash his rage, let him burn trees, melt rocks, explode the ground, while slowly herding him toward one specific spot. A clearing that Shikamaru marked hours ago, maybe days. The spot where every tree has been prepared, where the shadows fall just right, where a few explosive tags lie buried under leaves, waiting. Akainu, thinking he's got the upper hand, steps in. And just like that, the real fight begins. The final battle in the forest. This is where Shikamaru goes full savage. Akainu is strong, no doubt, but strength doesn't matter if you can't land a hit. Shikamaru keeps his distance, using clone decoys to bait Akainu into launching attacks that just burn the air. Every move Akainu makes gets read like a book. Every blast of magma lights up the shadows Shikamaru needs. Then, when the timing's perfect, Shikamaru strikes. Shadow Possession catches Akainu off guard. He's paralyzed, even if just for a second. And with that second, Shikamaru activates the trap. Explosives go off around Akainu, not to kill him, but to force him into a tighter space. A makeshift shadow prison built entirely with timing and planning. But Shikamaru knows Akainu won't stay down forever, so he goes next level. He doesn't just rely on shadows, he turns Akainu's own magma into a liability. You see, magma is super hot, but also super slow. Shikamaru knows that. and as Akainu tries to push forward, Shikamaru shifts his shadow from the side, extending it through smoke and flickering firelight, and binds Akainu's arm. Not to hold him, just to redirect one lava punch right into a pre-planted explosive tag hanging from a branch. Boom. It explodes right next to Akainu's face. Not enough to kill, but enough to blind him, just briefly. And that's all Shikamaru needs. In that brief moment of confusion, the real trap goes off. Akainu, now bleeding, blinded, and furious, charges only to find the ground beneath him caving in. A pit, dug days ago, lined with ceiling tags, shadow markers, and compressed chakra ropes. It's a trap worthy of a genius. One Akainu never saw coming. And down he falls. The humiliation, Shikamaru never had to try. Akainu's strongest moment is when he's angry. That's when he burns brightest. But against Shikamaru, anger is the biggest mistake, because rage blinds logic, and Shikamaru is all logic. The moment Akainu fell into that pit, the fight was over. He wasn't dead, but he was done, trapped, surrounded, neutralized, and that's the most humiliating part. Akainu lost without ever landing a real hit. All that power, all that strength, completely outmaneuvered by a guy who literally called this fight a drag before it even started. And the worst part? Shikamaru never broke a sweat. He didn't need to fight. He didn't need fancy jutsu or raw strength. He just needed a forest, a few shadows, and a little time. He turned a war machine into a pawn. And that, right there, is the genius of Shikamaru. Shikamaru's battle style. People sleep on Shikamaru because he doesn't have flash. He's not yelling Rasengan or summoning giant animals. But that's exactly what makes him dangerous. You underestimate him, and you're already losing. Shikamaru plays to win. Quietly. Efficiently. Every time he fights, he takes notes. Adjusts. Calculates. That's why even Naruto trusts him to run entire war operations. This guy was coordinating an entire army during the Fourth Great Ninja War while still fighting. If Akainu had done his research, he might have noticed that pattern. But Akainu doesn't do research. He punches. And in a world where strategy can beat even the strongest devil fruit, that's just not enough. Akainu's downfall. Let's not pretend Akainu is dumb. He's not. He's a seasoned admiral with decades of experience. But his downfall is his personality. He doesn't adapt, he doubles down. If something doesn't work, he just punches harder. More lava, more fire, more fury. Against most enemies, that works. Against Shikamaru, it's suicide. Shikamaru feeds on patterns. If you keep doing the same thing, he'll trap you in it. And once you're trapped, it's over. Akainu's absolute justice, his obsession with eliminating enemies no matter what, actually becomes a weakness. It makes him predictable. Shikamaru doesn't need to be stronger. He just needs you to be predictable. Respect earned, ego shattered. The battle ends with Akainu stuck, trapped in silence, his fists still glowing with magma but useless, and Shikamaru just sitting on a rock nearby, hands behind his head, looking up at the sky. He doesn't gloat, he doesn't flex, he just mutters, "What a drag," and walks off. But in that moment, Akainu knows the truth. He didn't lose to strength, he lost to intelligence. He lost to someone who saw this entire fight 3 steps ahead. Someone who never needed to yell or scream or explode. Someone who humiliated him without even trying. The genius always wins. This fight isn't just a battle of fire and shadow. It's a clash of styles, of philosophies. Akainu represents force. Shikamaru represents precision. And in a world full of monsters, sometimes the smartest guy in the room is the scariest one. Shikamaru proves that brains really can beat brawn, that traps, patience, and timing can outclass raw devastation. And more than that, he proves that true power doesn't always come from strength. Sometimes it comes from knowing exactly where your enemy will step, before they even lift their foot. Who else do you think Shikamaru could outsmart? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more battles like this, where brains beat brute force, subscribe and stick around. There's a whole universe of genius fighters we're diving into next.